What if your IT service desk helped you put your customers first? It can happen when it's powered by the world's most trusted cloud platform. Industry leaders BMC Software and Salesforce.com offer the fastest growing IT service management solution in the market today, RemedyForce. Let's meet Sally. Last week, Sally requested an iPhone by logging a ticket using the hashtag request capability, found exclusively in RemedyForce. IT got a request, and Sally got her iPhone. All was good until her mobile email stopped working. No worries. Sally jumps on to the RemedyForce self-service portal, and before submitting a service request, she checks out the articles section and quickly finds a possible solution to her problem by resetting her phone. Sally finds easy-to-follow, step-by-step instructions on how to remove and reinsert her SIM card. In this case, resetting her iPhone didn't work, so Sally decides to get help from IT. She gives some information about her problem and submits the service ticket. It's instantly routed to a service desk agent. Now, as an agent, you can start to get more information about Sally's problem. You can quickly tell if there's a problem on a larger scale. Right away, you notice there's planned maintenance. And diving deeper, you see there's a problem associated with the server and email on mobile devices. It also looks like someone has already issued a request for change, so you check out the latest status. Good news! There's a rollout plan, a backup plan, and information about who approved the change. It looks like Sally's email will be back up and running in no time. That makes Sally happy, and you a hero. Email is just one of the many critical business services your customers rely on. And with RemedyForce, you can monitor the status of any business or IT service at a glance. Deployment is fast and easy with no hardware or software to manage. Upgrades are automatic, so you'll always be on the newest version with the latest features. And RemedyForce is accessible to customers anywhere, anytime, on any device. Keep your employees happy and your business thriving. Try RemedyForce today.
Good day, everyone. Today, I want to talk to you about ITIL.next, or what I feel, from my opinion, to be in the next version or release of ITIL. I'm going to start with the service strategy book and just talk about a few things there. First of all, if I talk to the authors of the service strategy book, one of the things that they would tell me that the strategy book was really meant for executives, C-level type people, the CXO community. So one of the things that I really think that should be added to that book, because we talk about functions mainly in service operation book, but we should also talk about functions in the service strategy book. So we should talk about the roles of the CIO, the CTO, the CFO, and the CEO, and other C-level people, even maybe the CMO, and how their role affects service strategy. I know more than likely ITIL won't be all-encompassing of saying everything that they need to do, but I think we need to give them a little guidance that they can use so they can make better decisions and know that certain content is really meant for them at the end of the day. For example, even when we talk about service management, one of the things that we say, the service manager is supposed to have a positive effect on service assets as we start thinking about investments within our portfolio and so forth. And we're supposed to have a negative effect on constraints. In order to get rid of constraints, one of the key factors is leadership ability for leaders to make decisions and so forth within the organization. These leaders are usually the C-level people, or maybe directors or VPs within the organization that need to do certain things in order for us to deliver on the promises that ITIL makes to the organizations from a value perspective. What is social value, economic value, or psychological value? One of the critical success factors for all process areas is really executive commitment. So we should talk a little bit more in the strategy book about the roles of the CIO and the other C-level people there. Moving on to service strategy, I think there needs to be really one more role added there that I think is real significant, which is service broker. Because in service design, one of the things we talk about, is whether we should build or buy a solution, And today's environment with cloud computing and all the options that organizations have for designing things, we really need more of a service broker type role or function in order to achieve some of those objectives. Another process area that I think we need to add that's a part of some other best practices is CRM, is customer relationship management. In the service strategy book, we added or made more formal the business relationship management process in order to get the audience to understand how important it is to understand, the business perspective and the things that we do from a strategy perspective, and that has to propagate throughout the rest of the service life cycle. Now, in service design, customer relationship management, I think, is important because what we really want to do with that process is understand our customers more as we design the service solution, understand, how they value the solution and so forth, so that we can make better design choices along with the service broker, the service owners, the process owners, and the other roles that are within service design. There's also some other process areas that I think should be added to service design, but not only in service design, but so from a design perspective, we should talk about these process areas. And then when I get to service operations, I'm going to talk about the same process areas so that we do value creation and service design, and then we do value realization in service operations. And we need to make sure that we're able to connect the pieces between the two so that a process sometimes it's not just thought of within one area of the life cycle, but it expands across the life cycle, which is apparent with most processes, because you can, centralize process areas or you can decentralize processes like change management or other process areas where you create governance around them, like racing models and so forth. So the other two process areas that I think should be a part of service design is engagement management and experience management, because today's environment, I think, when we think about computing and consumerization of the things that IT does and industrialization on the back end of how IT delivers services, the consumerization part sometimes it's not, I think, expressed as well as it could be. And in today's environment, things are becoming more personal than ever before as it relates to services that we deliver and the services that we have to support in service operations. So we should have an aspect of designing the experience and designing how we're going to engage with our customers more on a personal level in order to be successful with the services that we're going to deliver on behalf of the company or the supplier itself. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I get to service operations and a little bit later. Now go over to service transition. I think not only in service transition, but one thing that's real key when we in all the process areas is understanding critical success factors and KPIs a little bit better as it relates to maturity. Right now, if you look at critical success factors and KPIs, there's sort of a list that says, here's all the critical success factors, here's all the KPIs. But we know that different critical success factors and different KPIs apply to different organizations depending on their level of maturity and what they're trying to accomplish from a business perspective, so they can use the right metrics and the right key performance indicators in order to make sure they're achieving their current business goals, and then knowing what maybe be the next stage or the next phase in their evolution or transformation of the service itself or the process areas that they're using to affect the service. So throughout the entire life cycle, I think we have to do a better job with critical success factors and KPIs. As far as service transition, some of the process areas adding, I think service transition is really today fine the way it is. It doesn't need any new process areas, but some of the process areas need to be expanded upon to talk about some of the new trends in IT, for such as DevOps. How do you connect DevOps to the ITIL practice? And it's not just within service transition, but it's part of service design, service transition, and service operations. How do you connect, these type of things, so people and organizations understand that the ITIL is not on one side of the spectrum and DevOps is on the other side of the spectrum, and they really don't connect, don't have any synergies. Because at the end of the day, if you really think about what ITIL is bringing to the table, it says that most or all organizations, they deliver a service or they deliver a product. And ITIL is the best practice for doing IT service management, helping organizations understand how IT underpins the delivery and support of that product on behalf of that organization for those customers that they are creating relationships with within the markets that are being served. So we need to do a better job in that and talking about some of the latest trends that even related to agile development and so forth, and other things that organizations are doing. So they're not sort of siloed away, and the organization says, well, since I'm doing DevOps, I don't have to do ITIL. So, or since I'm doing, for example, even cloud, if I'm doing cloud, I don't have to do ITIL. But understanding those parts of the transition phase and what service design brings to the table, and then service operations. Now, when I get to service operations, of course, I told you earlier, I said two of the processes that I would take forward into service operations is engagement management and experience management. Because today, when we talk about service operations, we talk about the service desk being the single point of contact for users. And the reason why we have the single point of contact is because we want to manage the experience. We want to engage that user that's having an issue without them trying to figure out who to call, and we may want to do it in different manners, like have a call center, a help desk, a service desk, use follow the sun type methodologies, and so forth. But before that user even calls the service desk, we may want to change their experience so that they can do self-help better and so forth. So these are the type of things that a process like experience management would do from a value realization perspective in service operation. And engagement management, with the emergence of things like mobile technology or social and analytics and cloud, or what we call SMAC, these areas are becoming way more important than they have been in the past because of this personal experience that we want our end users to have before they, like I say, may even contact the service desk. As we start getting engaged with incident management and request fulfillment, we want to make sure that the end user is having a great experience and being delighted with the things that we're doing from our IT perspective in order to support them with the services and products that we're delivering on their behalf. There's also another process that I think that should be added within service operation, which is defect management. We do incident management now, and the goal of incident management that most people know is to restore service as quickly as possible. We understand what an incident is, which is a sort of a symptom of something that a user is experiencing. And then we do request fulfillment. If it's not an incident, maybe it's a request of user wants documentation, or they need their password reset. Then we go to access management to help fulfill that. But suppose there's a product, not just a service that we deliver to a user, like for example a mobile device or something like that. We want maybe to have different metrics around defects in products and defects in services, just like we sort of talk about in Six Sigma and other best practices, so that we can manage those a little bit differently and look at the metrics around those differently, and not really call those incidents or requests, but actual defects at the moment of inception based on what's going on. And maybe even event management can not just open up incident records or problem records or change records, but based on us monitoring our environment and our services, we may say, this is not performing the way it should. So maybe there's a defect, even though there's not a user using the service or the product. We want to manage that a little bit differently and put different timelines and different perspectives around when we want to do resolution around those type of issues. Now, another role in service operations that I think, or another function that we really should try to put together is, for example, it's a automation specialist. An automation specialist role, what I feel that they should be responsible for, is sort of end-to-end service management. A little bit different than a problem management person, but someone that help maybe put together a cloud solution within operations. Looking at how the network and the databases and the servers and all those things work together. Today we talk about applications management and technical management and operations control and operations management, and we sort of silo the roles across those different areas. But why not have a role that's sort of a jack of all trades, but still goes to those specialist roles and helps us, with collaboration and coordination more around those roles. So I think we should talk about automation specialists more that can actually work with service brokers, process owners, and so forth so we can be more successful in the value realization of the services that we offer to our customers. Now, another thing I think we need to address, in ITIL, we talk about IT services. We started to talk about business services. We put more emphasis on trying to make things more simple for our end users and talk about core services, enabling services, and so forth. But in today's age, what's really starting to propagate is digital services. Those services that you see on your devices and so forth. Those services that are self-serve, that like for example, in the United States, Uber, if you want to order a taxi or Starbucks, you want to order a coffee, and these type of services are all over the place, that we have these digital services starting to emerge. So we have to understand how the managed digital services really across the life cycle, from a strategy perspective, a design perspective, a transition, operations, and so forth perspective, as it relates to what we do. Just like we talk about IT services and business services, I think we need to take that to another perspective. And I want to give you another example of what I mean by experience management and engagement management. Say the user calls the service desk, but like I said earlier, before the user calls the service desk, let's say there's a process in place. If we think about process type architecture scenario, where we actually go and manage the experience, then we manage the engagement. For example, there's companies that do this already. For example, one that comes to mind is like Apple with their Genius Bar concept, that instead of a user just going to a service that you make an appointment, the experience is managed, and they actually tie the experience and the engagement model into their overall supply chain and things like that. So they actually connect, experience management, engagement management with knowledge management. So we start talking about that and a little bit more details in service operations, instead of just talking about knowledge articles and things like that for incident management. We'll talk about managing knowledge and the overall user experience based on user profiling and even the engagement with things like gamification, how that can help us. So we may want to start bringing up these type of subjects so organizations know these are tools and stuff that are available to them, and help them create that experience that they want the users to have in the first place. If we go back to ITIL basics and we talk about the service desk, and a lot of times we would talk about, the service desk is sometimes that users first experience with a particular company. They may buy a product outside, they call the service desk. If they have a bad experience, no matter how good the service is or how good the product is, they may not want to do business with that company anymore. So why not talk a little bit more about experience management or engagement management, and using gamification and knowledge management more successfully to even help us with overall supply chain and value chain across our entire service, so we become more personal again with how we're supporting that end user. And again, to go back a little, one of the things I said is that in today's environment, really people are the new platform. We may think as IT professionals that we want to look at a server as a platform, or a network as a platform, or any of those IT concepts we talk about. But at the end of the day, really what we're trying to do is develop services and products for people. And it's people on the other end within IT that are really helping this. So we're talking about people-to-people connection. I think I was at the Dreamforce conference, and they talk about the Internet of People instead of the Internet of Things today. They said what we're trying to do is really connect people to people, people on the supplier side and people on the customer side, so we can manage the experience, manage the expectations, and everything else. Underneath that is the Internet of Things, which is another subject we may want to talk about. How can we use sensors related to experience and engagement management? Sensors are everywhere. Sensors are in our phones today, and in the places that we shop. They're online, and they're constantly watching us before we even have a chance to express ourselves verbally about challenges we may be having with support or a delivery of a service. The sensors know so that we can engage those customers better. So again, they have the experience that we really want them to have as it relates to our services, which can make us more competitive, more efficient, and again, delight our end users, engage them better, and so forth. Now, a few more things probably that I will probably say that really needs, which I sort of talked about already, to be improved as it relates to ITIL, is the way that we talk about the relationship between measurements, metrics, KPIs, critical success factors, objectives, all the way up to vision, so organizations can understand how to use factual data to make better decisions. There's something called systems thinking, what you use maybe a systems one approach or systems two approach to systems thinking, but really the power is when you use both system one and system two. System one is based on opinion. Maybe you got somebody in your organization that had many years of experience, and then system two is based on metrics, factual data. So when you combine the two, we get better decisions. Within ITIL, as we talk about the CMDB and the CMS and the SKMS, we talk about transforming data to information, to knowledge, to wisdom for decision support. In today's environment, we talk about big data, and sometimes what I hear is that not only are we talking about big data, we're talking about little data, and trying to put analytics around things. So we really want to do a better job in the way that we make decisions. So we need to talk about that in across the life cycle. Really, how do we enable the CMDB and the CMS with tools and federation of data in order for us to create the SKMS at the end of the day? That needs to be more defined within ITIL so people understand and organizations understand it, so they can become even more service orientated. And what does service orientation mean? How do you get there? We probably even need to have maybe some complementary guidance on what does service orientation mean. Because what I find out a lot when I go talk to different people within IT, they're either doing technology management, or they get and start doing process management because they took some ITIL classes, so they focus on one process or another, and sometimes they forget about the business objectives that they're trying to accomplish. And ITIL, at the end of the day, is about service management or IT service management, mainly ITSM, IT service management, for achieving your service management objectives or your overall practice of service management for the objectives that the organization is trying to do, socially for the environment or society, for economic value, for psychological value, and so forth, to bring all those things together. So we have to make sure, and we have to give people and organizations a better perspective of how the practice of service management works and how managing services and products across the life cycle from a service-oriented perspective really helps them. Now, that does not mean that you cannot change a piece of technology and do service management, because maybe what's preventing you from meeting your business objective is one piece of technology. Now you're applying that technology, but you have to connect the pieces. You just can't have IT projects without business relevance. Or changing one process or an activity in one process can help you deliver better business value. But sometimes, like I said, we get stuck in the process areas and don't understand the relationships between the processes, how we can remove constraints to get to the business value we want and improve overall performance within our organizations, so that we can deliver better social value again, better economic value, and do the right thing so behalf of the relationships that we're building with our customers over time. Now, so I talked about service strategy, some key roles there that I think need to be added, especially related to the CXO level or functions within the organization, the executive functions, and how they can use the service strategy material better as it relates to their job responsibilities. And what we do in ITIL a lot, if you look in the appendix, we reference other material. So we can reference business material, other articles, and so forth, so that we can back up, the things that we say as relates to these roles and responsibilities within an organization, to give them a better idea on how they can lead their organizations and remove constraints so their practice of service management is better and the management of their services is better with IT. In service design, I talked about things like customer relationship management, the service broker role, which I think is very key in today's environment, especially because of cloud computing and so forth, engagement management and experience management, because we want to make sure we're designing related to those aspects of those processes, and they even become a part of our service catalog. So the service you should deliver should have an element of warranty around the expected experience and how the customer is going to be engaged, whether it's going to be through a mobile device or through a service desk entity or whatever, so that they understand that. And to go further in service transition, I feel the process areas are fine, but we just need to enhance them some more, to talk about DevOps, agile computing, and some of the other latest trends that are within the marketplace. We go over to service operations again, engagement management from a value realization perspective, working with the user. And remember, service design, we mainly talk about the customer perspective, building things for the customer, the one who pays for the service. Now you become a user, you need support, you want to have a good experience, and so forth. So in service operations, we want to make sure that we still talk about engaging that user, managing their experiences, managing defects, a new process area that I think we should probably add into service operations, creating a new role that helps with end-to-end operations, like an automation specialist, so that we connect all the pieces together. Like, for example, in service operations, we may be using some provisioning technology for provisioning hybrid cloud type environments. We really want the persons using that technology to understand end-to-end perspective of how the overall IT stack works, and be able to work with the network people, the database people, and everybody else to create coordination and collaboration across the organization. And then what's underpinning all that is how we use the CMDB, the CMS, the SKMS, and so forth. Now, the one book that I really didn't touch on was CSI. I feel today that the CSI book is fine, but we just need to talk a little bit more about metrics as it relates to the CSI book, the KPIs and the critical success factors as it relates to improvement and different levels of maturity, and what those levels of maturity mean for business outcomes. Not just giving a list of critical success factors or a list of key performance indicators, and have people try to figure out, what does this mean as it relates to where I'm at today? Maybe even map it to other maturity models that's in the market, and say, based on this critical success factor and this key performance indicator, if you're using these type of metrics, more than likely you're maybe like a reactive type organization. How can you be more proactive, and so forth? What kind of things can you do within incident management? How can you get to 85% first line resolution? Are you even thinking about first line resolution right now? Or you just have a simple approach to instrument that you just want to manage tickets, almost like a call center, and have problem management, really do a lot, and repetitive things, when we can move some things up to incident management, like some of the knowledge and so forth, and some of the metrics around how well incident management is performing. Those type of things. A lot of organizations need to understand that, so they can understand this roadmap and this journey that they're taking on to do ITSM better and service management better overall. Another role that I forgot to mention that I think really needs to be added is innovation officer within the the life cycle, especially as relates to strategy and design. And even the innovation officer should be working with service operations to understand what's going on in operations, what our users requesting, what does the customer want, and what new technologies are being offered, and can we take advantage of them. Just like when cloud came out, I know there were a lot of confusion. People said, well, do I really want to use cloud? What's the challenges? I hear about all the security issues and everything else. Is it right for me? And some organizations still haven't even looked at a cloud that well yet, and it may be very applicable to them to help them be higher performing organizations and able to deliver more value to their customers and, again, like I said, society as a whole. So those are my thoughts as it relates to, what should probably be in the next release of ITIL. And what I would like to do now is just open it up for questions and any comments or thoughts about anything that I said, because I think I have about 10 minutes left before the end of my session. Seems like there's no questions. So, last and final thoughts. If today you don't see things in the ITIL that can help you, look for other best practices, because ITIL really uses other best practices. As an ITIL author and an examiner and looking over the materials, one of the things we have to be familiar with is other practices related to Lean, Six Sigma, COVID, and so forth. And project management. If you're going through the ITIL life cycle, you say, man, I really don't understand how I can manage this project. Oh, key, project management. Let me go look at the project management discipline. Let me try to understand the synergies between what ITIL says and what project management says. Let me try to understand the synergies between even the ISO standards and what ITIL says. So you use ITIL as a foundation for what you're doing, and think about the gaps that are missing, some of the things that I talked about, and figure out the best way to go forward for your organization as it relates to the business outcomes that you're trying to address. And that's the end of my session. Thank you.